I noticed a quote about team, each member having trust in each other, and once you know that everyone trusts each other within a company, you know that you're onto the right culture.
So turning to the actual housing market, there still seems to be a perception that things are slow. Is that what you're seeing?
I think it's only slow if you believe it's slow. Okay, so welcome to Beyond the Sales. So we thought we'd do a podcast about all things estate agency and just highlight a few truths and be quite open as possible. So this is obviously something we're going to do quite regularly, and if you do have any questions or you are interested in what we have to say, then we would love to receive your comments or any topics that you may want to discuss. So I'm going to hand you over to Liz.
Hello. I'm going to ask a few questions and maybe get a bit of a feel about how this podcast is going to work in the future. So we've had a brilliant start to the year, I think, Mr. Ellis, don't you?
I think we've had a phenomenal start, to be honest.
What have been your highlights so far?
Well, there's been many highlights, but as you well know, over these last couple of years, we've been really working on quite a few things. So obviously we take our, go back to the beginning of 2024, obviously one of the things that we needed to really sort out within the office was company culture. And you've been with me the longest now, you've been with me 5 years, which is phenomenal. But yeah, so last year for me was stripping it all back and really working on the foundation of the business. And I think this is something that we've really worked on. But figure-wise, obviously, on what we're actually achieving with sellers, if I look at what the statistics are saying at the moment, obviously we've got a 81% for sales sold ratio, which is absolutely phenomenal within our industry, I believe. So that's dramatically changed. I suppose the real key highlight, if you look at one of the things that we're doing as an agency is reservation agreements, and we just had Amber, who's been with us 18 months now, 19 months, 20 months. And she has been acknowledged by a very good friend of mine, Brian Mansell, who heads up the Gazelle reservation agreements, and he's put her forward to go on a webinar and talk about obviously our impressive figures and our impressive fall-through rate, which is sitting at 94% completion rate on ones that we actually put on a reservation agreement. So I think that's absolutely phenomenal, and Amber has absolutely showcased what Harrison's are all about. So it's a massive asset to the company. So that's probably my proudest achievement, I would say, taking away everything that I've done. Very proud of what she's achieved. So,
yeah, she did amazingly, really good, and a real ambassador for Harrison's, I think.
Quite great.
So why do you think, you sort of said you think it's company culture that has driven the success. Could you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, well, I noticed a quote, and I'm not very good at rephrasing some quotes, but I see Simon Sinek highlight a quote the other day about team and each member having trust in each other. And once you know that everyone trusts each other within a company, you know that you're onto the right culture. Would have been said better by Simon, but something along those lines. So I think, as I said, when you're looking at what we've achieved over the last couple of years, each individual has trust in each other, which I think is great. And it's
a look up the quote.
Yeah, but it's I feel more at ease. I feel more comfort. Everyone works well together. There's no arrogance. There's an element of competition, which is great. I think it's healthy. But all in all, very pleased personally from my side of things.
Yeah, I think being part of the team, I feel like everybody's got each other's back, and I'm like just so proud of what the guys are achieving, particularly as they're a lot younger than me. They're just doing really well.
I think when you touch base on the younger thing, I know obviously we're not taking age into consideration, but there is a couple of younger people within the business. But the joy I like about that is they're not young.
No. They're not immature.
Yeah, which I think is another thing which is great. There's ambition there from each individual, which I like.
Absolutely. So turning to the actual housing market, there still seems to be a perception that things are slow. Is that what you're seeing?
But I think we've heard this over the last couple of years, haven't we, really? So I think it's only slow if you believe it's slow. Yes, there's a couple of properties that are maybe straggling at the moment, but ultimately, it also goes back to what I always say, isn't it? It's price. Ultimately, if it's priced right, then properties are selling within 4 to 6 weeks. So that's where it should be. But it's what the market is determined at the moment, isn't it? But I wouldn't quite say it's slow. There is a lot of activity. We're still on the sort of fence at the moment. I feel that there's a few more people reserved. Obviously, we've got the stamp duty changes that are coming in imminently. But from what I've seen over the last several years, if you look at online activity for me is higher. It is higher than what it has been, which for me, I feel there's a little bit of a change in the market. I'm not quite saying that we're going to a buyers to sellers market at the moment, but there's certain signs that I'm seeing that are quite encouraging, and I think we're going to see the market pick up. Not going to see I'm not saying it's going to suddenly take off, but there is a little bit of a shift that we're seeing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, definitely. So if you're wanting to sell this year or wanting to buy this year, what's the best advice you could give somebody to get ready to do that?
Well, I think if you're thinking about moving at the moment, if you look at the statistics that Rightmove quoted, now, February, March, is the ideal time to actually put your property on the market. So if you're wanting now to be moved by summer, this is a great time. But also really, really interesting that Rightmove has stated that more deals are likely to go through. And this is just based on ones without reservation agreements. It's a statistic there that they are more likely to complete, which is great. Obviously, if you've got the backup there of the reservation agreement, you are going to move. But yeah, what steps can you take? For me, there's various things, and there's the only issue that we have within our industry at the moment is the time that it takes to go from sale agreed to completion. And I don't really want to talk too much about this very moment in time, but what can you do to try and improve it? I think this is for another podcast, that one. So for me, getting sale ready, getting all the information, getting the solicitor instructed earlier on, getting all your finances in place, these are key things that we continuously talk about. If you bring that forward to the very beginning, then ultimately that's going to speed up the process. So everything's ready to go there. And once you have a great deal, get a reservation agreement in force. That's my biggest win.
Yeah.
Or not biggest win. It's my biggest bit of advice I would give you.
Yeah, they really work. We see results from them. So you've got on the market today. Congratulations. How long will it take you to find a buyer?
I think it's priced right, and there is a strategy behind not just sticking it on Rightmove, which I think sometimes the consumer's perception is all we do is stick properties on Rightmove, when that's not the case. That's the majority of estate agents, got to be completely honest, but if there is actually a proper strategy rather than just stick it online, then you should be achieving a sale or at least an offer within 4 to 6 weeks of starting.
So on that, you're talking about selling off Rightmove and selling it behind the scenes. How do buyers know about these properties?
The buyers that are registered with us.
And
Quick note, if you're not, register on this link. Because again, this is another thing. I know it sounds quite blunt, but it is. If you're not registered with us and you're waiting for everything to come to Rightmove, then you're probably going to miss out on potentially 25-30% of the stock that we've got, maybe even more. So if you are serious about moving and you haven't found the ideal property, you can just sit dormant in our system, and then we know that as soon as something comes live, we can let you know before it hits Rightmove. So it's old school estate agency really, is actually putting people with property and actually understanding people. So the more that we understand you and what you are looking for, the better we're going to put you with a property that doesn't go to Rightmove.
Absolutely, and we get really good results with that.
Yeah, I think there's two benefits to both. Obviously, for us sellers, we've been getting great prices off market, so we've been maximising your sale price. But again, I've done a video, so please refer back to this if you're a buyer. At the end of the day, we're not here to manipulate the price for you, but ultimately, you're going to get first refusal on that property. So we are, at the end of the day, we are instructed to get the best price, but ultimately, if it's the right property for you, then don't muck about. I've been in a situation myself where I paid £10,000 over, but for me, it's a family home, and that was the key thing for me, is making sure that I secured my future. So I wouldn't be worried too much about overpaying if it's the right price, right property.
Also, I think if you do pay more but you're not looking to sell, it's going to be a long-term family home, price kind of is less relevant.
And we had this situation, didn't we, the other day, where somebody was a bit concerned because they were looking to update the property, but the worry that they had was once it was all done, would they be making a loss? And I simply said to them, well, when are you looking to move? And they said, well, 5 years. And I went, well, the market's going to go up in that time. And even if it does go down, it's all relative. One, can you see yourself living here? Is it the ideal property for you? Yes. Well, don't worry about it then, because ultimately, unless you're selling tomorrow, it's not going to be a concern.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So we also say we do things a little bit differently in that we don't tie people into sole agency contracts. How's that good for us if they could just walk away and we don't get paid?
Yeah, well, ultimately, I suppose at the end of the day, it is a risk for us, isn't it? Because we don't sell everything. As I said, we've got a high percentage of the properties that we take on, which we've proven earlier on, that we sell. So we have become very selective, and we recently about the target audience. So we're not looking there to appeal to everybody, and we're not going to ultimately. But I'll go back to it. What's the initial question? Because I've gone off on a rabbit hole.
Easy down. Why don't we tie people into sole agency contracts?
So simple. Obviously, when I officially took over the company in 2016, I wanted to abolish contracts because ultimately, if we are not doing what we are saying on the tin, then ultimately we don't deserve to be representing you. So we don't get it right all the time. We're not perfect. We're striving for perfection, but probably never get there. But I'm going to continue to push. But ultimately, if it's not right and we've not delivered, and you feel underserved that we haven't done and delivered on what we promised, then you can walk away. I don't believe in long contracts. I don't believe in. But at the end of the day, if an agent is that confident that they will sell your property, they will not need to tie you into a contract. And ultimately, if you're being served, you are going to leave them. As simple as.
Do you agree? Yeah.
So be very cautious about contracts. And this is a question that you should ask every single agent before you go to the market, is what time period it is. And if it's anything more than 4 weeks, then you need to be renegotiating that.
But we do 0 weeks.
But we don't.
So you also said we only take on a limited number of clients. How does that work?
But I think one of the things that, if I go back on my background, I wanted to be the #1 selling agent in the area, and I was just taking on everything. But the problem I found there is we diluted the type of service that we offered, and we've been working on a lot on this over the last couple of years. But I think it's got over my ego side of things that we won't be able to serve everybody. And ultimately, the more we take on, the less personal it becomes. And for me, it's making sure that every person we take on, we can service. And I go back to 2020 when I quite openly admit that I nearly had a breakdown because we just took on far too many people and we were getting complaint after complaint. That's not something that I've experienced in my whole career. And I've been doing it since 2004. So we re-looked at the offering that we could come up with, and it was focusing on who we feel we suit most.
Yeah, absolutely. And having worked in both a company with a large market share and with a much smaller portfolio, I find it gives me much more time to be able to negotiate offers and get the price up. and deliver a better service and update my clients regularly, which is, as an agent, I really, really appreciate. I think that's great. So you also mentioned 81% sales conversion rate. It sounds impressive. What does that actually mean?
It basically means, in simple terms, that out of the 10 properties that we list, we sell 8 of them. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, well, yeah, that's what agents do, if you look at the area average, it is sitting at just over 50%. So in other words, it's basically meaning that agents are taking on 10 properties, selling 5. And I think this is probably down to there's certain agencies that are more targeted on just listing properties, whereas we're becoming more and more hyper-focused on making sure that, yeah, ultimately, if we do this, and I know it sounds really simple, but we want to make sure that we do serve everyone. And everybody that lists with us, we will sell their house. So what does it mean? In simple terms, you're more likely to sell with us than any other agent in town.
Yeah. It's quite, when I first heard that statistic of 50%, only 50% go on to sell, that's quite shocking, really, and sort of highlights that perhaps the industry isn't working the way it should do. How do you think agents can improve?
That's another podcast.
Next week.
Yeah. I you know me, for instance, I think the industry should be regulated personally. It's not. We self-regulate. We self-regulate through Property Mark, so we're continuously improving. Obviously, we've got various training that we do. All right, some of it sometimes is a little bit boring, but we're staying ahead of the curve. I don't know. For me, the whole industry needs a big shake-up, and the government keep talking it, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere near it at the moment. I think it's all talk, but the way that I see it is, yeah, commissions are an area where every client wants it as less as possible, but this, again, maybe another topic to talk about. It's what rather than looking at it as a fee or as a commission, it's more looking at an investment. Are you that confident the agent is actually going to sell the property and are actually going to maximise your asset? I think that's the key thing to do. So, as I said, obviously fee-wise, we're more expensive than majority of the agents in the town, but we have got the backup that, yeah, we are achieving, again, on average, 1% more than the area average. We sell 8 out of 10 properties, and we complete on 94% of the properties that we do on a reservation agreement. So,
impressive stat. So last question, just to wrap it up, because it's our first attempt at this, but what are your predictions for the rest of the year?
I don't want to talk politics. I'm very reserved in regards to, I don't know what's going to be around the corner. I don't think it's going to decline. I don't think we're going to see an increase in the market. I think we're going to see a steady improvement throughout the year, unless there's something out of our control. But overall, for me, and going back to, I said, all the little signs that I see behind the scenes, activity levels are there. So for me, I do think we're going to have more of a positive year, personally.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks.